This is the E-commerce Edge podcast with your host, Jason Greenwood. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the podcast. It is my immense pleasure to welcome AKHILESH SRIVASTAVA from Fenix Commerce to the podcast. Welcome, AKHILESH.
Great to have you. Great to be here, Jason. I'm a fan, actually. I've been listening to several of your episodes. Can't claim that I've listened to every one of them, but several of them, and have become a big fan.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. We were talking off air that you're based in the Bay Area of California now, and I, as a Southern California boy myself, born and raised, I'm very familiar with the Bay Area. And you said you also, prior to living in the Bay Area, you also lived in Washington, in Seattle for, I think you said 10 years, wasn't it, in Seattle? So you're moving, as you move south, you're moving to the better weather.
Yeah, absolutely. And in fact, that was one of the huge reasons for me to move. I'm originally from India, if you couldn't tell. And I moved to the Midwest originally back in 99 and then lived in very cold weather. Obviously, you can imagine how Midwest is in the US. Lived for 4 years, and then Seattle was, I had the opportunity to work with a big brand in Seattle, and moved there and loved Seattle, everything around it, greenery and everything else. Ended up staying for 10 years. And then, as you said, realized, it's too much of cold and wet weather throughout the year. So let's find another spot where we can, as we get older, how do we keep getting closer to warmer weather, actually?
Yeah, that's certainly one of the motivators for us to move from New Zealand to Mexico. Definitely in Mexico, it's a lot warmer. Puebla is a very temperate climate year round and ranges from about that 15 to 35 C most of the year. And so that's definitely very attractive and sunny weather, not a lot of rain. And the downside is it's not nearly as green as New Zealand. But as we get into talking about Fenix Commerce, before we get into the nitty gritty of what Fenix Commerce is and does in the logistics space for e-commerce brands, how did you get into this wonderful world of e-commerce? If I look back across your career, you did do a stint at eBay for 3 years, a delivery experience and returns, managing that. Prior to that, IBM Global Business Services, and then at Infosys as well. So you started out, from what I can tell, you started out more in the hardcore IT side of digital and then slowly progressed more towards the e-commerce aspect of digital. And I find that is a pretty well-trodden route for a lot of people. I didn't start out in hardcore IT. In fact, for a very short period of time, I went into the IT space and I found, geez, I'm not an IT guy, I'm a digital guy. And there's absolutely a difference, isn't there?
Yeah, no, I'll tell you, from me, more than practically since day when I started working with, initially, I joined Infosys as one of my first jobs, actually, within 6 months out of college. And I was put in on a project for Levi's in Asia Pacific back in India, and it was for an order management platform for Levi's. So it was smack in like supply chain. And literally from then on, I almost fell in love with the supply chain. And even though, to your point, I was doing IT back in 99, we were writing 98, 99, we were writing codes. And then I came to the US in 99. Gap was my client for 4 years. I worked in Gap warehouse, multiple warehouses actually. Gap was growing phenomenally during that period from 99 to 2002, I think. So from Infosys, I was there. They were the only client I worked with for those 4.5 years. And very heavily focused on supply chain, but it was not on e-commerce because e-commerce was still a small thing back in 99, 2000. It was more focused on basically middle mile or first mile, if you will, getting the inventory from Asia into the warehouses and then replenishment into the stores. How do you make warehouses more efficient from pick package perspective and everything else which you can do around it? And if I look at my career, I have really, while I started writing the code, I very quickly moved away from code because I loved getting into the data side of things, the operation side of things. So I very quickly became very heavily involved on the essentially operation side from warehouse management systems perspective, that, hey, what are the enhancements we can do to make operations a lot more efficient, run in the warehouses with the software, which is WMS. And first 8-9 years of my life, I really worked with beyond Gap, couple of other clients, specifically in that space, in their warehouses, focusing with my team. Very quickly, as I mentioned, I had moved away from writing the code to what we call as product management now. We were not using the term product management back in the day, but really product management is what I was doing. That, hey, we could do these kind of things. This is how we can make the enhancement, because I came to your point. I came from the IT side of things, solving the problem with technology and writing the programs and so on. But having a deep understanding in business operations allowed me to swiftly move over. And then as e-commerce started becoming a big thing, slowly it kind of continued evolving from the back of the house to how do you use e-commerce, basically supply chain effectively to drive e-commerce. Of course, Amazon, as we all know, has changed that complete landscape, and we live in a different world these days.
Yeah, and it's interesting how you started out your career looking at the logistics and operational side of e-com, and I didn't really start looking at that until probably midway through my e-commerce career. I've been doing this for over 20 years now. I really learned as I started to work with larger and larger merchants when I was in the agency space, and then going back and working merchant side again as an employee within a merchant. I really started to realize that e-commerce is largely logistics with a pretty face put on it that's customer friendly. And I really started to realize what it takes to run an efficient e-commerce operation that is a sustainable business, and how quickly your profits can be gobbled up with internal and external logistics if you're not careful. And also, I learned pretty rapidly which types of products, and this has changed somewhat latterly, but especially going back 10 years ago, there were certain products that just were not suitable for e-commerce because there wasn't the mix of carriers available in the market that could do medium-sized parcels, large, heavy, oversized parcels like furniture, etc. There wasn't bulk carriers that you could tap into via API. Most of the bulk carriers were more legacy type carriers, one-man, two-man truck shops, and they didn't have APIs. And if you wanted to lodge a parcel with them, you needed to call them up or you needed to send them an email, set a pickup time. So I've seen a massive, massive evolution of the e-commerce logistics space over the last 20 years. And then we combine that with the off-the-shelf systems that have emerged, particularly over the last 5 to 10 years, for both internal and external logistics management. And the game has changed. I remember when I was at HealthPost, we had an OMS. We didn't have a WMS. We had an OMS that was actually built by our web agency as part of a custom Magento implementation, and they wrote a custom OMS for us. And our warehouse was manually organized and manually managed. And then once I came on board, we went on the hunt for, we were replatforming our ERP to NetSuite. At the same time, we wanted to implement a full-blown end-to-end WMS. We wanted to implement chaotic put away. There was lots of things we wanted to do in the warehouse. And we ultimately decided on PeopleVox and its native integration with NetSuite as our WMS. And I tell you, we implemented a carousel system that brought parcels from the back of the warehouse to the front of the warehouse. We started to do bin level tracking. We started to have transition, basically when one product moved from one part of the warehouse either onto the carousel or a cart, and then it made its way to the packing station. It would get scanned at every step of the way, and there was totes on the carousel that were tracked as locations as products moved from one part of the warehouse to another. We implemented chaotic put away, and we were able to reclaim probably 20% of our warehouse storage space as a result, just moving to a chaotic put away scenario instead of fixed bin locations for fixed products and brands. And I really learned through that whole multi-year process of replatforming all that back office technology. So I had scoped this stuff before as an agency, but I was never inside the business when it was implemented. I was always outside the business as a solution architect and as a theorist, not necessarily a doist. And I tell you, it becomes a very different kettle of fish when you are inside a business that's trying to ship out between 1,000 and 2,000 orders a day, and you've got to shut down operations for over a weekend, for example, when we're trying to reconfigure our entire warehouse at go live. and we're trying to move away from an old legacy system to this new automated system and get everything up and running and tested for recommencement of business on Monday morning. And I tell you, it really teaches you just how important warehouse operations, logistics operations are, how important multi-carrier integration is, both on the front end in terms of the customer experience, but then how that translates to the back end and integrating with those carrier systems and being able to generate labels and send them the consignment digitally, pull down the tracking number digitally, get that integrated into your back office systems and update all your fulfillments and tracking details for customers. I tell you, when you have to architect that entire system and all of the updated process engineering that goes along with that, it is a much bigger undertaking, I think, than what some people understand it to be.
You're absolutely right, Jason. Frankly, and you mentioned a lot of these things. We touched upon a lot of these things. If you think about, go back 20 years, both you and I have been in this industry for a long time. And when I think about when e-commerce, essentially, like even back in the Gap days, e-commerce used to be afterthought into year 2000, right? We are talking 24 years back. And initially, we have a website, we sell some products, and then who cares about customer experience? We ship it when we ship it. Focus was predominantly, and if you think about system landscape, you had an e-commerce storefront. It was a custom stack, obviously. Backend, there was no order management. Like somehow, some janky processes get the orders downloaded once a day, get them to the warehouse, load them in WMS. They do the processing, ship that out, right? Nobody really thought about, hey, we need actually an order management system where now, if you look 24 years fast forward, we are talking about what Walmart is doing, if you look at it, which is shipping actively from stores. I don't know how many people know that Walmart is, this past quarter, Walmart did more same-day delivery packages than Amazon, actually, because they're shipping from stores, right? So inventory visibility across your nodes has become a critical factor. Right level of inventory. How much inventory do you want to allocate from each store to the customer for online orders? And at the same time, the profitability is another huge aspect to it, which is now there are another thing you touched upon is these carriers, where a few years back, of course, they were only small parcels. A lot of these products, they were considered ineligible for e-commerce. That has all changed. Amazon is selling everything, and Home Depot is selling everything on the website for e-commerce. And technology has matured to a degree where a lot of those things those gaps have been plugged into their silos, essentially, right? But when I take a step back, while there are improvements, and even if you look at Manhattan, they started as a company in WMS space, right? Their bread and butter was warehouse management system for the longest part. And at some point, they said, 10 years or back, we have all these customers, everybody's using our PKMS, that's what they used to call it, as warehouse management system. Let's build an order management system, because Sterling, which was the product out there, they were the industry leading, frankly, probably the only legit order management system which used to be existing 10 years back. Manhattan built, and they had what I call is the captive audience, where people were using their WMS. Integration is a big challenge for any of these things because they're all in backend. So that's where a lot of these things, the tech stack has evolved, but it has evolved very slowly. Because if you think about, again, multi-parcel carrier, rate shopping, carrier engine, where the native capabilities which any of these platforms offer, they are very basic, fundamental. They are nowhere what is required for a large e-commerce brand, because not only do you need to optimize once somebody has placed the order, to select the most cheapest cost-effective service to ship the order. At the same time, you also now need to think about, hey, what kind of promise do we want to make to the customer upfront before they have placed the order? Can you offer fast delivery, free delivery, without breaking the bank? So you can, as a business, you can still be profitable. All those decisions happen. That's where technology in general has not evolved to the place where retailers can seamlessly, e-commerce brands, they can seamlessly provide that experience to the customers, actually.
And that segues nicely into Fenix Commerce, right?
Absolutely. That's that in many ways. If you think about, obviously, my career, slightly different from yours, has been always in the guts of supply chain side of things. And it's really slowly, as e-commerce started evolving, I started focusing more and more on last mile delivery. As I mentioned with Gap, the focus used to be on the first mile, middle mile. And then as e-commerce started becoming bigger, that became focus for these large companies that, hey, how do you optimize that spend? And when I came to eBay, when I had the opportunity to run shipping and returns for eBay, my goal was, hey, obviously eBay is pure marketplace. We don't ship packages. We are just providing the technology. So how can we use the massive data which is available at our disposal from all these sellers who are selling merchandise online on ebay.com to bridge that gap for the customers before they place the order. So essentially, can we build a system which can provide that level of visibility to each unique shopper who comes to shop on eBay? Of course, it's not going to be anywhere close to Amazon Prime, which is 2-day or 3-day free delivery back in those days. But it's still going to be better than saying 5 to 7 business days of delivery, which nobody has any clue about. So that, given with my background prior to eBay, where I was pretty familiar with the landscape, that where the focus is for each of these big players. When I call them, in my definition, I call them legacy technology behemoths, whether it's Manhattan or IBM. They rule pretty much from the backend standpoint. And then from carrier rate shopping, you have ProShips of the world, which have been there, legacy solutions. So in each of the silos, so the tech stack for these large companies, now you have gone from, okay, you have a warehouse, your website, you have an order management, you have a WMS, and WMS is probably plugged into a transportation management system for small parcel or rate shopping. But each of them, they don't connect seamlessly with the single focus of how do we improve the end-to-end customer experience when they land onto when you get into the consideration, I want to buy something, a pair of pants or a pair of jacket or a pair of shoes or whatever it is, where do I buy? And if I want to buy them from Nordstrom or Macy's or wherever, when will I get it? Is it better for me to go and pick it up from the store, or can I actually get it delivered at my home in a reasonable time frame? So while all those solutions exist, none of have them done the work over the years to really, how do we seamlessly connect and create that intelligent layer which can sit at the front from the customer experience perspective to provide that visibility to the shopper. So that was the primary driver for me as I was looking at eBay when we were launching a lot of these things, that it actually really moves the needle. End consumers, doesn't matter, even though they're shopping at eBay, they care about visibility of delivery experience. They want to know, when will I get the product delivered? And we saw, when we ran multiple tests, A/B tests, even during eBay days, conversion went up in a very significant fashion, actually. When we provided that visibility to the shoppers earlier in the funnels, to me, it was pretty obvious that, hey, this is the big space. Of course, a retailer can take a large integration project and try to do these things that, yeah, we have information living in these silos. Let's pull it all together in a single seamless, call it an intelligent data layer from last mile delivery perspective, which powers that customer experience. But let's be realistic. Nobody has the resources or the focus or the bandwidth in any of the large retailer to go after it in a meaningful fashion. And that was the driver for me to start building this tech so I pulled together a team of some guys who were obviously focusing on building very high tech, the tech is scalable and agile for large enterprises. So let's build this platform. And obviously, I know some folks who have worked in the past. I want to run this idea by them and see if there is an appetite for something like this, right? So that's how we got started. Really, that build that intelligent layer which sits on top of their existing, any retailer brand's existing systems, whatever they use, but we can bridge this gap and improve the customer experience while still optimizing every single stage of the journey.
Yeah, you raised something I think that many people who maybe don't either work in e-commerce or don't necessarily work specifically in the logistics side of e-commerce, they don't, even from a solution architecture perspective, they don't know just how complex this can become. And they don't necessarily understand the various design patterns that we look at when we're doing solution architecture around internal and external logistics. And there's all the way from you're a startup and you're on Shopify and you aren't making any sales yet, all the way from maybe having a shipping container out the back of your house where you're doing everything yourself, you're doing all the pick, pack, dispatch yourself, and maybe you have a carrier aggregator partner that's plugged directly into Shopify. They're pulling down the orders directly from Shopify. They're creating the consignments. They're lodging those with the carriers. And so they're managing the pick, pack, dispatch piece, but maybe not the order management or the warehouse management piece, apart from updating the orders directly back into the e-commerce platform with the tracking numbers once a parcel's been dispatched. But then on the e-commerce engine side of it, there's a lot of complexity too. You can be using inbuilt shipping engine. You can be using a third-party shipping rates engine like a Shipper HQ for very complex rate rules. And instead of standard matrix rates, you can have these really complex cascading rules at checkout with different cart configurations, different origination and destinations will define the shipping rates and shipping times that are available to the customer. Those have to pull down, in many cases, real-time rates from the carriers, depending on the cart configuration. Sometimes in an aggregated cart environment with large parcels and small parcels, sometimes that order will have to be split between multiple carriers. So that adds complexity. Then if you want to offer multiple service levels to the customer and say, look, we can ship this next day air or whatever it is, but it's going to cost you X. Cool. If you're willing to go 2 day, it's Y. And then if you're willing to wait a week, it's Z. Then when we start thinking about the complexity that gets injected into that around click and collect or hybrid click and collect, where some items maybe either are clicked and collected, some items are shipped, or we have ship from store scenarios now, which come into play. And then when we have the back office systems, when that transitions from the order being placed to getting into the order management system, the warehouse management system, and getting out of either stores, a centralized DC, or a combination of the two in many instances nowadays, every single aspect of this whole entire stack and the way that these systems have to communicate and share data with one another, it has gotten radically more complex, especially in the last 5 years. And as someone who now works very heavily in the B2B space, we have new complexities again because they have their version of click and collect in the B2B world, also known as will call. And in many cases, we're collecting from an industrial style warehouse where now we've got to make sure that we have a safe area within that warehouse for people to actually come through that warehouse door, collect items, get the updates automatically via email when it's available for collection. So like this whole entire process, I think most end customers have no idea what's involved behind the scenes to make this happen and make a clean customer UX for this. And even to give them updated shipping information from the moment where they place the order to the moment the order is in their hands, and then potentially to manage the reverse logistics if they need to make a return. Most customers are blissfully unaware of just how complex this gets. Hey team, I have a big favor to ask you. Please pause this episode and send the link of this episode to someone you know that you think would enjoy this content. Really appreciate you spreading the word. This is how we grow. We're not a Joe Rogan. We don't have big, massive advertising budgets, but we absolutely want to grow. We want to get the learnings from all of these episodes out to as wide of an audience as possible, and we need your help to do it. Thank you, and now back to your listening.
And frankly, you are absolutely right. Most customers are unaware, and frankly, they should not care about it. As an end consumer, I could care less. I just want to make sure that I have the most easy way to buy things when I want to buy them, and in case I need to return them, you need to make it as a retailer and to make it easy. And you talked about a great journey there, right? Like think about a Shopify brand who is starting in their apartment or kind of garage or wherever, and then slowly you grow. But the challenge is, one thing which I keep seeing, whether it's a small Shopify brand or a very large multi-billion retailer, unless and until, of course, there is a big awareness, thanks to Amazon, for Walmart, Target, Best Buy, and top 5, I would say top 5 to 10 retailers, where they are continuing to make heavy investments. They realize this actually is something very critical. But if you move away from those guys, what I continue to see, right, is, and this is pretty anemic. The small brands, of course, their focus is, hey, I want to spend all the time in marketing. They are generally brand people, right? Product people. Hey, we have come up with a cool idea. We are selling it on Shopify, and we hope it takes off. Their focus is primarily marketing, right? That's the only way they know things. But as the brand reaches a certain scale, what I continue to see is Even within Shopify ecosystem, when a brand goes from, let's say, 2 million to 10 to 20 or 50, 100, the organizations, they become complicated, but original, essentially things which were working for you when you are $1 million brand versus $50 million brand, where now you have, to your point, it's supremely complicated. You may be working with a 3PL, you may have your own warehouse. How do you make sure that you are actually optimizing every stage behind the scene from ship cost standpoint, from making sure that orders are getting out of the door in time? How do you make sure that your orders are actually getting delivered to the customer, where initially people will buy because of the marketing, but once or twice, if they have a poor experience, they're not going to come back and buy from you unless and until you have something pretty unique. So that's where I think the industry and a lot of these thinking has to evolve, in my opinion, where how do we make sure, because e-commerce, ultimately, I strongly believe you need marketing to obviously get the brand awareness and get people becoming aware, but that the supply chain logistics is the backbone. And that's where if you and I often think about it like Amazon, frankly, at the end of the day, they're a supply chain company. We all know that. They are a technology company, which is they have really turned the whole thing on its head, where if first and foremost, we'll take care of customer experience and then we'll optimize everything else around customer experience. Of course, not many companies in the world will have that kind of resources to their disposal, but at the same time, that does not mean you completely forget about it. There is a middle ground here with technology where you can actually find the happy medium. You don't need to go and compete with Amazon exactly head to head, saying that, yeah, we'll deliver one day, 2 day, as long as you are actually thinking actively from day one that, hey, yeah, we got people on the side, now let's convert them. And let's not just convert them, create that beautiful experience end to end. Of course, product still has to do what it says it does, but making it very easy for the shoppers, for the buyers to buy things on the website, to get it delivered in case they choose to return it, making it easier. And that's where tech has, overall landscape has become a lot more complicated. If you just look at number of 3PLs, which are in US alone, because of all these things, how e-commerce has increased, or even the ship cost, how it keeps going up in general year over year. It hurts smaller ones more than bigger ones because, of course, after COVID, all the carriers have more capacity in general. So big shippers, they have more opportunity to essentially negotiate with the larger these FedEx and UPSs. But small ones, they are still constantly in a pretty tight spot. That how do we keep meeting customer expectations? Where yeah, you sold once to a customer, but how do you create that magical experience where once they have experience of buying something from you, next time they think about you when they want to buy something and they actually come back for shopping with you again. So you are essentially not spending your marketing dollars every single time to acquire new customers. It's really increasing your repeat purchases. That's where you make the money.
Yeah, and I think if we focus specifically on Phoenix for a moment, I see you as being part of the order management system, but you're not an order management system. You're not doing order orchestration. You're not doing SKU level order routing. You're not doing any of that, but you're the glue that kind of ties that whole piece together in the customer experience layer between the time that the customer adds the products to their cart and the time that it gets into their hands, regardless of how the order orchestration is happening behind the scenes. You are creating the customer experience layer over the top of whatever may be happening in the back office so that this is a unified experience for the customer from a UI UX perspective. And as I understand it, in full transparency, I've never worked with Fenix Commerce before, so I'm just looking at what's on the tin. And you guys, as I understand it, you're a multi-carrier integration platform. So you've got multi-carrier parcel management. You show estimated delivery dates in the checkout so that people can see, okay, cool, here's my shipping options, here's my shipping prices, potentially even being transparent enough to let them choose their carrier. Then you help to manage the order routing piece, you showing the post-purchase delivery status to the customer as well, and you provide an analytics suite over the top. And the only piece, perhaps maybe you can fill a gap in my knowledge, is do you also then, are you like a Loop Returns? Are you like a Yalo? Are you also helping to manage and display the experience for reverse logistics as well? Or are you really primarily focused on the outbound logistics piece until the parcel reaches.
Yeah. So Jason, basically, by the way, it's amazing how quickly I've understood the value proposition for Phoenix. As you mentioned, by the way, only difference I would say, you mentioned checkout, delivery dates in the checkout. So we are absolutely with the way you described it, with that intelligent layer which sits on top of your existing systems. If you don't have those systems in place for many of the Shopify brands, we are probably the only thing they are going to need till they become a billion-dollar brand, right? Because they don't need that level of sophistication when it comes to shipping from store. You actually need, but for a brand to go to that stage, um, you are probably already hit like 500 million plus type of thing, right? Where you have physical stores and you're ready to ship from. A lot of things have to come in place. But if it's just strictly a DTC brand, to think about it, generally you start on Shopify. You want to actually provide that experience to customers, frankly, in the emails, right? Those marketing emails which you're sending out. So we actually have the ability for the known customers where we can write there on those emails. When people open those emails, we can say, there is a sale going on. And by the way, Akhilesh, you can get these products delivered to you by June 4th. Jason, you will get them by June 8th, whatever it is, right? That level of personalization we can start doing right there in those marketing emails to the product pages, cart, checkout. And that is, by the way, completely enabled by the fact that you mentioned two core components of the platform. One is the order routing layer. So we have the intelligent order routing layer. So we are pretty agnostic to where your inventory is located. What we look at is, we don't care if it's a 3PL or your own location, but the performance of the location, which is how quickly they are able to get the orders out of the door based on historical performance, based on your SLAs with that location, based on the product profile, and so on and so forth. And then also, we optimize for profitability while routing the orders. What location is more profitable to ship the orders? You may, if you have if for some of our clients where they're shipping from store, and if there is a fast moving store, which is that have 3 items on the shelf, but I'm going to sell them full price anyway from the store, we will automatically not take the inventory from that store. Instead of take it from somewhere where inventory has been sitting on stocks, instead of taking a markdown, you can actually dynamically allocate from that store and try to sell it full price as much as possible. This is very applicable for obviously apparel, footwear, and some of the fast moving categories. And then last component is the carrier rate shopping, which is one of the reason majority of the companies can't do it. Even though they have a carrier rate shopping platform today, that is very typical traditional. It comes into the play when they're printing the label. That is too late in the game. We are doing rate shopping right there in the checkout. So we can see that, hey, in $3.50, I can deliver a package to Akhilesh in 3 days. Versus for Jason, it is going to be $4.75 and it is going to take 4 days with the cheapest service, right? So we can, by doing that, you don't necessarily, as a brand, you can choose to either display actual shipping costs to Jason or Akhilesh, which by the way makes marketing a little bit tricky because many of the, as brand become bigger, you obviously want to keep flat tiers, but again, more intelligence around it, right? Which is, hey, I can offer for $5, I can offer 2-day delivery to Akhilesh versus Jason, it might be $7. And that can only be done when you have a sophisticated carrier rate shopping engine, which can operate right there in the checkout using the inventory availability and visibility. Otherwise, you're back to the square one, which is you are throwing out those static shipping options. I see multiple things. For large companies, they'll say standard shipping 3 to 8 business days, and then you have expedited 2 business days, but it's $20. And then and it doesn't matter where you live, right? Those are static choices you get, which blows my mind away. And these are billion-dollar companies, like multi-billion-dollar company in many cases. And then I look at some of the other cases in Shopify ecosystem where they will throw basically kitchen and sink at you, which is these are 15 shipping options, UPS ground, 1759, USPS home delivery, whatever it is, right? 839 as a shopper. What the hell is going on here? What do I choose? So really, it's the right balance where what I see is many of the customers who have, you talked about Shipper HQ, where they have this very sophisticated rules engine, which can, sometimes I've seen brands just, they don't know how to use it. And they don't know how to use that They are just passing everything which comes from carrier and filtering it and just passing it on the front end, which makes consumers very confused. What do I do with this? I don't know which shipping service to select. So even though they are putting everything out there, it ends up causing higher cart abandonment. But as I said, the key is keeping it very simple for the end consumers, where they have a finite set of choices, 3 or 4 shipping options. Of course, if you do click or collect or pick up in store and all those, allow them to give that visibility based on real-time inventory. But then all the complexity should be taken away. It should be done by, and that's what we are doing behind the scene, this intelligent layer, or you call that as a glue behind the scene for the brands, where if we are going to make your life simple. So number one, on the end customer side, we have made their life simpler. And second, this intelligent layer is also making the decision. So by the time order drops in Shopify or it goes downstream in your ERP or your OMS, if you have one, or WMS, whatever the case might be, you already have those decisions made. If this order should be shipped by this date from this location using this carrier service, and this is when it will be delivered. And all of that is done because we have this intelligent data layer behind the scene, where we know that a DHL ground, it takes 7 days to go from point A to point B in this for these 2 zip codes if the package ships on Monday versus it ships on Wednesday, right? That's the level of granularity at which we can operate and make decisions.
And then I guess as long as you're mirroring the same rules that they have set in there, or let's say they've got an order management system, they could technically use you as a lightweight OMS to start with, and you can do the order orchestration and all that from, if you're a relatively small and medium brand, then obviously you can be the order management layer, even if they've got a WMS in the back end. I think where it starts to perhaps get a little bit more complex is if you're doing some ship from a DC, some ship from a 3PL, some drop ship, and you're starting to get into more complex scenarios where the products are being sourced from multiple locations, multiple carriers, multiple suppliers. That's when formal order management, really heavy duty order management systems that are based on SKU level order management, origination, destination order management, supplier performance monitoring, all that sort of stuff. Then you need probably more of a heavyweight OMS like you would find in your bigger, more industrial scale ERP systems, and then hand that off to a WMS that only picks up, like if you've got an internal WMS, you only want to handle orders for these SKUs, whereas the other SKUs get intelligently routed to their other sources and processed from there, and then you're pulling in all the centralized tracking detail back into your OMS. But I think that for those mid-market brands, they could probably get away with just having a WMS in the back end, having you guys as the OMS and order orchestration layer, and the communication layer, more importantly, to the customer, because you're tracking it end to end all the way until the order gets into their hands. And then do you have anything that also deals with reverse logistics, or is that yet to come?
Yeah, no, absolutely, Jason. So you are absolutely right. If somebody has 1,000 fulfillment node, by the way, one of the example I would bring up, Dermalogica, which is a Unilever brand, beauty brand, prestige brand in Dermalogica, in Unilever ecosystem. So they've been our client for over 2 years now. So they were using an Oracle order management system, which was antiquated. And they decided, and they were shipping originally from their own 2 distribution centers. They had this goal that, hey, we want to offer this experience to the customers where 2-day, 3-day fast and cheap delivery to the customers. Essentially, that was the objective, top level objective. They decided to partner with a 3PL plus their own facilities. And initially, they selected Fenix for 2 reasons. One is, again, they don't have thousands of locations. They have really 6 or 7 different, including the 3PLs, where a software platform which can route the orders intelligently between their own facilities as well as the 3PL facilities. So we actually started there for them. And one of the other thing was providing that experience to the shoppers on the front end, product pages, cart, checkout, that visibility. And so for them, the choice was, hey, do we do serious customization to Oracle solution they were using, or do you use something like Fenix? You got them up and running literally within a matter of few weeks. And we get real-time inventory from their 3PL. So we have that visibility with us. So that once we did that, one of the surprising effect was their split shipment rate that dramatically came down from 25% to 2%, because replicated, we did not just replicate their original rules, we brought in a little bit more intelligence and we gave them a lot more flexibility how the allocation can be done with a platform which is again built using the new tech, a lot more flexibility, and first and foremost focusing on the customer experience. So that way you're not making these downstream decisions in a silo. You are driving it as early in the funnel as possible. So downstream execution is much easier, right? So that's where, but and carrier shopping is a core component of the whole equation, where how do we create that experience? And you mentioned end-to-end visibility. And that's where, again, once somebody has placed the order, they are now waiting, right? That, hey, have you shipped the order? Has it gone out? It's handed over to the carrier. I'm still going to get it by this date. Keeping them fully aware, making it as far as transparent as possible, of course. And that's one thing which we have done, since we have that pretty unique capability from data layer standpoint. Any of our client, they don't have a single package where their customer don't have the visibility at any given point in time, even on the post-purchase side. Many of the clients who are using some of the solutions earlier, their thing was, hey, our customer, we use this post-purchase tech, but if the carrier doesn't provide a delivery promise, they are not able to provide that. And we have just completely eliminated it, because again, we have this predictive engine which runs based on, hey, what was the last event which happened in supply chain? Did you just print the label? Yeah, okay, you printed the label. Now carrier pickup is going to happen 6 hours or 8 hours or 12 hours, whatever the case might be. And then this is when it will be delivered. So keeping those, again, building out the customer communication around each of those things by giving them absolute visibility, right? That this is what is going to happen. And just think about it as a forecasting problem, which is, the truth is, when the package gets delivered to the customer in their hands, the farther away you are obviously, you're always optimizing, right? That's how accurate you can make the prediction. But there is always a visibility to the customer.
And how do you guys think about returns and reverse logistics? Are you wanting to provide that layer as well? Do you provide it already? Do you provide a portal for people to lodge RMAs? What is your view on reverse logistics and what part you play in that?
Yeah, no, great question. So currently what we are doing for our brands, we can obviously, we allow them to, and shoppers, when somebody is sending the package back, they want to know, hey, package has reached the warehouse at the stage, when will I get the money back, refunded to me? So we provide that visibility. We also have, in terms of return portal, where customers can, and shoppers, they can generate a label or choose a location where they can take it back. We have partnered with a couple of players, like Happy Returns is one of them, where they are doing the portal side of things. One of the things which we are doing, because we believe as a company, from data standpoint, that how can we minimize returns? The reason people are returning items is, there are one of the few things, right? One is they did not get package delivered in time. That's number one. Number two, they bought extra items because they were doing the sizing, testing, validation at home. So how can, and third was, many a times there are customers who are encouraged to get over free shipping threshold by buying extra items and then returning, because many times returns are free. So you can buy 3, get over $100 or $50 free shipping threshold, and send returns right back in. So taking all that intelligence from data standpoint, combining both pre and post, we are starting to power for our clients. How do you provide that intelligence that, hey, we have seen more returns for this order where people have complained about sizing, or dynamically providing shipping promotions to customers. We have seen, what, hey, there is a tendency this customer will buy more items to get free shipping type of thing. So again, it's in early stages, but really where we are focused is, there are a lot of solutions where printing the label is the easiest part. How do we take the data intelligence, not just from sizing standpoint, but from sizing, from quality, from essentially free shipping threshold, from delivery promises standpoint, we provide as much information to people as possible upfront in a seamless fashion, where you don't throw everything at them, but again, very intelligently try to give them the information so they are not buying the items unnecessarily, which are anyway going to have to come back.
Yeah, that's where the analytics layer comes into play for you guys, for sure. And how do you guys make your money? How do you charge? Your SaaS platform, clearly. Do you have tiers? Is it on a per shipment basis? How do you guys charge? How do you guys make your money?
Yeah, so we actually have obviously, as we discussed in the call, right? We have multiple modules, so we offer those modules to our clients. We don't tell anybody to use every single thing, though generally, once client get on the platform, they want to use every single thing we offer. For smaller shippers, if you think about it, we have the carrier shopping engine, but they have very little control on their 3PL ability for smaller ones, right? They don't have a control on how 3PL is going to ship. So post purchase is probably the most logical module for them to use, providing visibility to the shoppers and also the EDDs pre-purchase. But when it comes to routing the order or selecting the carrier, that's not in their control. So we can still, using our historical machine learning models, we can still predict the EDDs, we can do the post-purchase. So that's where we decide based on the customer profile, their shipping network, their operations, what are the modules which will help them? How do we start providing quick value to them literally from day one? And ultimately, we are a SaaS platform. So the pricing is determined based on the tier. What's their annual order volume or monthly order volume? What modules are they going to use? And that determines the pricing for our clients, essentially.
Sure. And what's on your radar if we were to look out 18 months, 12, 18 months from now? What don't you do today that you'd love to be able to do? Or what are your customers asking for that you don't yet do that you'd like to build into the platform over the next 12 to 18 months?
Yeah, one of the things which we always get asked, two things actually, right? Even though we have partnership, you talked about return support for a couple of these big players in return space. Our clients are always asking us, hey, can you guys build us a return portal? We want to consolidate every single thing because we see such a big value from data standpoint and everything else. If they can be consolidated, that's one thing which we think about. Again, nothing definite there, but in some way, shape, or form, we might offer a more seamless offering, either through partnership with one of our existing partners, or we may choose to build something. That's absolutely possible. Other thing is, a lot of this data we have, our clients specifically in apparel, they are saying that, hey, we want to, that order routing layer we have, can we make it even more intelligent from margin optimization perspective, where we can be even more aggressive? Think about combining markdown optimization with shipping pricing optimization, combining those two things together. How can we do even basically next level of order routing? Because even if you look at companies like Manhattan or Kibo or Sterling or anybody else out there, they are doing the order routing, which is even today very strictly based on business rules. It does not factor in a lot of dynamism in the business, right? Which is, you thought you're going to sell this particular size, style, color in so many units. Now they're not selling, and you have them sitting on the shelf. You are whatever, right? Like all those scenarios. How do you? And another, so obviously, one big spend is your merchandise. Second is marketing, and third is shipping. So how do we bring it together in a seamless fashion to provide a lot better order routing capabilities, order allocation, sourcing capabilities? So that's definitely something which is on our radar. Third thing, which I would say, is our clients are saying, hey, we have carrier shopping engine, which is phenomenal for small parcels. We are increasingly getting approached by companies which are selling furniture, and they are saying, hey, can you extend that capability for LTL carriers as well? That we would love to do that for LTL carriers. Yeah, sure. Let's figure out if we see a big enough opportunity where we can, instead of offering a custom solution to one or two clients, if you see that, yeah, there are hundreds of you guys where solution can be offered in a very cheap, cost-effective fashion where it helps everybody, as opposed to us offering something very custom to you guys. Those are the kind of things we are evaluating in pretty aggressive basis as we look at next 18 months.
Love it. Yeah, LTL for my friends down in the ANZ region, we call those bulk carriers, and in North America they're called LTL carriers, or less than a trailer load carriers, aggregated freight carriers, whatever you want to call them. Yeah, that's a very big deal, especially where you have large bulky items that you're not gonna take up an entire truck, but you're gonna take up a significant portion of a truck for these large bulk items that maybe are in large crates and things like that. And then what the carrier is trying to do is they're trying to aggregate pickups, they're trying to aggregate outbound shipments, they're trying to intelligently bring down their own costs by doing this intelligent order routing themselves. So visibility into that and having that availability for your end customers becomes really important, especially when we're talking large, bulky, heavy, especially even if it's only volumetrically large items, because most carriers do volumetric rates. And so understanding what the volumetric rates are and doing that parcelization within your platform starts to become pretty important, especially if they don't have a full-blown WMS in their back end. If that intelligence layer can sit in the OMS and order orchestration layer, then that takes a lot of heavy lifting off of the warehouse management piece, which is great, especially for mid-market merchants who you maybe can't justify a Manhattan, or they can't justify a PeopleVox, or they've got their warehouses is manually organized and it's manually managed from a pick, pack, and dispatch standpoint. Anything that you can bring forward into the order orchestration layer to help them out becomes a really valuable value add for your platform. And I love what you're doing with this. I love the innovation you're bringing to the table. I'll always applaud automation and innovation to help merchants be more successful and sustainable and efficient as a brand. Now, as we come down to the end of our time together, this is where I get to flip the script. I get to hand the microphone over to you, let you ask me one question, any question you like. Akhilesh from Fenix Commerce, what is your question for me today?
Yeah, no, thanks a lot. I appreciate it, Jason. So, question which I would ask of you, of course, I always ask, as you look at next 18 months and focusing on this particular stuff, when obviously there are a lot of things which will change. Where do you think what is the area where where you're seeing merchants are focusing really mid-size, not really necessarily very small ones or very large ones, mid-size. Think about somebody who's shipping million packages per year. What are the biggest pain points for those guys today, in which they are looking to solve?
Yeah, look, I'm seeing two different sort of things starting to become a lot more common. One is how can we offer more than one shipping service level to our customers? Meaning that, especially in the ANZ region, historically, we've tried to thread the needle and say, we're going to try to strike a balance between shipping time and shipping cost. And we're going to present one rate to a customer, one shipping option. And that's it. And I think the days of that are pretty much over now for especially medium-sized brands. They want to be able to offer their customers more than one freight option and at more than one delivery time point and more than one price point. They want to give them optionality. And they might say, look, we're going to offer you free shipping, but that's a 3 to 5 day service. If you want it if you want it faster than that's fine. We can deliver it faster than that, but you're going to pay $5, or you're going to pay $3, or you're going to pay $10, or you're going to pay whatever it is that you're going to pay. And I think that optionality, just like optionality of payment methods, became a thing starting 10 years ago, where you've got now a lot of customers are getting overwhelmed in the checkout because they got 20 different payment methods available to them. And I think we're starting to see a rationalization of that now. Instead of having 5 different BNPL options, now you got one. Instead of having 10 different payment methods, you've got 3. And I think we're going to land somewhere in the middle on shipping options too. I think in the bad old days, there was one shipping option and that was it, or one free option and that was it. Now, I think in some regards, there can be overwhelm if you give a customer too many options, but I think they probably need more than one. So I think that's becoming a normal thing, to offer 2, maybe 3 shipping options at multiple price points. That's becoming common. Then the second thing that I'm seeing become common is actually charging at least a nominal fee for returns and reverse logistics, even if that fee does not cover 100% of the reverse logistics costs. Just making sure that customers, for example, in the fashion industry, are not just doing bracket buying just because they can and because it's free returns. Making customers be a little bit more thoughtful about returns by charging a nominal fee and making them go through at least a basic RMA process. So erecting a little bit of a hurdle for them to cross to actually get a return into our hands. And then finally, in addition to that, making sure the merchants are a lot more cautious, especially in the fashion industry, around sizing display, fitment guides, making sure that they have harmonized sizing across their entire range. And for non-fashion brands, making sure that the product detail and the product attributes that they show on the website, the images, the videos, the auto attribution that they're doing using AI nowadays, making sure that products are fully attributed so that when the customer is doing their product research, they're actually buying the right product in the first place, to help minimize the chance of returns. These are the broad themes that I'm seeing emerge in the marketplace. And this is happening even in the B2B world. Whereas historically in the B2B world, you get one freight option and that's what you get. Now I'm seeing even in the B2B world, offering more than one freight option at different price points and times is becoming an important thing to offer. But it's hard, especially if you're in the bulk carriage space. You might only have a single bulk carrier that can move this item from point A to point B. In the B2B world, offering shipping flexibility is still harder than in the D2C and B2C world, but it's coming. That's for sure.
Yeah, no, I agree. And by the way, great points. You and I are pretty aligned as I look at essentially glad to hear that I'm not a wrong track here. I think B2B is definitely also starting to become aware. They can't be far behind in terms of the end-to-end buying experience online.
Yeah, no question about that. Akhilesh, this has been a fantastic conversation. I really appreciate your time. If people want to get a hold of you and they want to learn more, I'll put the link to your LinkedIn profile in the show notes and the links to Fenix Commerce. And just so everybody knows, it's spelled Fenix, F-E-N-I-X, commerce.com. I'll put that link in the show notes as well. Other than that, how do you like people to get a hold of you if they want to have a chat about e-commerce logistics, freight, Fenix? If they want to have a conversation with you, what's the best way?
The best way is, frankly, when I'm like many of us, I'm always available via LinkedIn. I look at pretty much every single message, and I enjoy talking to people about understanding what are the challenges they're looking to solve in e-commerce logistics space, let it be small or big parcels. That's how I built this body of knowledge over the years, having worked with different type of shippers, different type of brands, companies. Happy to share my expertise and experience and also learn from them essentially. And as I said, LinkedIn is absolutely. So thanks for sharing that. Another thing is if people want to send me an email, which is my first name, Akhilesh at fenixcommerce.com, which is Phoenix spelled as F-E-N-I-X commerce.com. So those are very reliable. And many of us, I'm always on. I really enjoy this too much. So always up for a chat or two in this area.
Akhilesh, I really appreciate your time today, and I can't wait to speak to you again soon. Thank you so much for your time. Are you a B2B or D2C e-commerce merchant? Then head over to greenwoodconsulting.net to learn how we can help you scale your business.